Good evening. Hi, Amber. How are you? I see that you're here. Oh my gosh. Um, well, we have a lot to talk about tonight. I'm hoping for audience participation. So you always participate. I appreciate that. And thank you for being here. And don't forget to do a thumbs up. Thank you very much. All right. Well, as I said in my title, the collapse has begun. Okay. Now, I want to say um, from the very beginning, I am not trying to, scare anybody, fear monger, whatever people say when they don't want to deal with hard facts and truth. Um, but I don't mind saying the hard facts and the hard truth. Secondly, let me just say this. Let me thank everybody who participated in my last video because YouTube, I'll see how they do with this video. But YouTube had been suppressing my channel so much. It's crazy. Like, one day I had 1,200 and something views. The next day I had 100. Now, what, did everybody die? That doesn't just happen. That's manipulation on the other side. So this time, my last video had something like 1,800. Last time I checked, it said 1,817 views, something like that, right? Isn't it funny how that happened right after the government shut down? Now, that makes me think that the powers that be, or whoever be, is behind the scenes pushing buttons. Maybe they got furloughed. I don't know what happened, but we will see if the same thing happens with this video. Anyway, welcome. Hi, Marcella. Welcome to the channel. Um, we have a lot to talk about, and my eyes are getting older. So if you see me put on some readers, it's so that I can read my own notes. I know it's terrible. Anyway, so I want to start out again, like I said, by saying I don't believe in trying to scare people. There's nothing in it for me. I don't get paid for my time, to do anything on YouTube. This is not my job. This is not my profession. This is what I do just because I care about people. So, uh, so I want to say that first of all, thank you for being here. Secondly, I would like to say, as you all know, I am not a financial advisor. Okay. I am a certified life coach and I can help steer people in certain directions, but I'm limited in what I can say, especially online. So for legal reasons, right? So anything I say here is my opinion. It's either what I've done, what I'm doing, or what I have observed. It is not financial advice. Okay. So make up your own minds about stuff, do your own research about stuff, and then go from there. Right. But don't take what I say in as gospel because I can only speak from my own experiences or my own observations, and that's all I can do. Okay. All right. So everybody who has not signed in yet, please click the thumbs up so that I can say hello to you and I can see where you're signaling from. So, as I said in my title, the collapse has begun. What do I mean by that? Well, you'd have to go back several decades to understand everything that's happening right now. There has been a very slow moving and deliberate um, attempt to fundamentally change America. Let me put it like that. You might remember who said that, okay? But this was decades before Barack Obama ever made that statement. So, hi, Linda, New Jersey, welcome. There's been this slow moving train to change the country, to now let me try to give you a word picture. Um, yeah, uh, Herbert Walker Bush. That was the first time I heard anything about the New World Order. What came out of his mouth, and I was younger, and I wasn't involved in politics at all on any level for any reason. But I do remember him saying that. Well, here we are. But anyway, um, how do I want to say this? So there's been this slow moving train for the purpose of taking down the country. Now, let me just try to give you a word picture like I tried to do a few minutes ago. When you are going to build something, um, a new building, a house, a business, whatever, you try to draw from what you know. And hopefully you try to draw from the mistakes that other people have made, right? Um, you can look, if you're an architect, and you've been to school for all that, there's only so much that school can do. You have to get your hands on it, right? You have to get your hands in there and see what works and try not to do what doesn't work by studying other people, their buildings, their plans and things that they did, and did it hold up under a storm? Did it hold up under a tornado or a typhoon or a monsoon? Was the building able to take the stress? Because if it wasn't able to take the stress, it was either built with cheap materials or it wasn't built for the circumstances that could eventually come against it. In other words, if you live in a place like Oklahoma or the Midwest where we are subject to tornadoes, then if you're going to do a new construction, you really need to be building on what will work, what can handle sustained winds, right? If you are living in the Philippines or on some island, I wouldn't. But if you're living in the Philippines or on some island somewhere, they are subject to monsoons and typhoons, right? Which they're going through right now. How do you build a home in that environment, right? So, but before you build anything, a wise builder will survey the land, level the land, eliminate all obstructions, right? Get rid of anything that would stand in its way from it being able to be built on that site or rebuilt, right? You have to clear the land. When my husband and I bought some land an hour or so away from here, we were looking for land to put our RV on because I got tired of putting it in storage. I'm like, let's just store it on our own land. We got to buy some land. Well, we bought some land, and then there was land right next to us that had an abandoned house on it. And the lady had passed away, and she left the house to her cousin. Her cousin didn't want it, and her cousin had moved to Texas, and it was a whole big thing. And it was a whole big legal thing. We had to get some legal advice on how to do the paperwork and all this because of the way she wrote it out. At any rate, once we got through all of the particulars, then there was the issue of, now what do we do with this house that nobody can live in, right? It's not livable. You can't live in it. And she was a hoarder. That did not help. So anyway, we decided to remove from the house everything that we could take out that was usable, right? That could be cleaned up and regifted to someone or donated somewhere or kept for ourselves because we own the property now. So we did that. And then after we removed everything that we did not want there, then we put out a notice for whoever wanted to come into the house to take whatever they needed. They could do that without cost because that would be less stuff that, we had to take to the dump or whatever. So my point, I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, but my point is, in regard to this country, there has been two different visions for this nation. And let me tell you, this nation is not innocent of war crimes or anything like that. But there's been two different visions. One of the visions is, in my opinion, some kind of a weird utopia where everybody has equal everything. The problem with that is somebody's never going to have enough. You understand what I mean? You're going to always have those who do not have as much as you. But if everybody has equal and the resources are not endless, that means everybody gets a little bit of the whole, a little bit, right? And the people that are dispensing or dispersing the goods get the lion's share of everything. So how does that relate to what's going on right now? This is a very, very complex situation that we're in right now. It's just I didn't even know where to start. I had so many notes, you guys, till I was like, I mean, I have 2 pages. I promise I won't do that to you. I'm not gonna do that to you. I ain't gonna hold you here that long. But let me tell you, so there is so many, this thing is like a hydra. And I said that years ago. There are so many heads to this thing. There's so many tentacles. There's so many little nooks and crannies and avenues, and they all connect. And when you have two different visions competing for the same landmass, you're setting yourself up for some really interesting happenings out on the streets. Okay. Now, for those of you that know me, you'll notice how I'm saying things, and that's because, well, I want to be able to get this message out to as many people as possible. So the title of this is "The Collapse Has Begun," and it actually began a long time ago. It really did. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Carol. Hi, Linda. The collapse started a long time ago. And it's been a slow moving train, like I said. So if I wanted to take over a country, how would I do it? If I wanted to take over the mightiest fighting force in the world, how would I do that? Well, I can't do it from outside because they outnumber me, they outperform me when it comes to military operations. How can I do it? Well, I can do it by appealing to their psychological weaknesses. I can do it by trying to win them over and appeal to my sense of care and concern for them. And then once I'm in a position to actually do what I want to do, that's when I would strike, right? That's how I would take over the country. That's exactly what's happening, folks. I am not, let me just say this again. I'm not trying to scare you. If you're in Jesus, you shouldn't be scared anyway, but you should be aware. You should not be ignorant of the times that we're living in. Now, okay, here I go, y'all. Look at this. You ever seen me do that before? No. Anyway, my eyes are not working today. So, one of the things that's happening right now is the banking system. I mean, there's a whole thing that can be said about the economy, right? There's a whole thing that can be said about that. We are in the position that we are in because our government for decades have just endlessly printed money, fiat currency. It's tied to nothing. We used to be tied to the gold standard, right? In other words, if you turned in an ounce of gold, they could give you $35. It was worth $35. This is way back when, before me. Okay. And then they decided to take us off the gold standard and just start printing money. So they just start printing money. Well, it's not backed by nothing. Nothing. It's vaporware, right? Now, I know some people would kind of have, feel some kind of way about me saying this concerning Bitcoin. Bitcoin is vaporware. It's tied to nothing. Well, let me change that. It is tied to something. It's tied to somebody's finger on a button. That's what it's tied to. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to what Lynette Zhang says. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. All right. You don't. If somebody else has control of your stuff, you do not own it. Now, I saw a story. Um, I think it might have been last night. This gentleman went to the bank. Now, some of you know my story. If you've seen it on the other channel, and I forgot to put the link here, some of you know my story. But there's this gentleman. He was talking about, he went to the bank. He needed to get a couple $1,000. He said, not a big amount. I just needed a couple $1,000. And he said, first time in my life, I went to the bank. I told them I needed a couple $1,000. I wanted to withdraw. They flat told him no. Yeah. Some of y'all know my story, right? What happened to me? I was traumatized. I couldn't believe it. They told him no. He was shocked beyond words. He said, never in my life. He says, I banked with these people for years and they have never refused to give me money. He says, and then the lady asked me what did I want it for? And I told her, it's none of your business. It's my money. It's a legal transaction. And I want it. Let me tell you why they're having to do that now. Our dollar is in serious trouble. It is worth almost nothing. You know what it's worth? It's worth what people think it's worth. Whatever they think it's worth, that's what it's worth to them, because the government knows it ain't worth nothing. They know it. They absolutely know it. Anyway, she asked him, what did he want it for? He told her, pretty much it was her business. And the reason that she asked that is because they didn't have it. They didn't have it. Now, this is what a lot of people don't know. When you deposit money into the bank, it does not stay there. A lot of banks are only required to keep 10% of their assets in-house. 10%. That's it. That means everything else that comes in gets loaned out somewhere else, right? Whether it's mortgages or whatever. So you're pretty much an unsecured depositor is what they'll tell you. They'll say, well, your money is protected by the FDIC. Well, which is also the federal whatever. If the government has no money, how is your stuff protected? I just want to know. Somebody tell me. You don't hold it, you don't own it. Okay. So the banks are collapsing. And are refusing withdrawals. Now, this has been going on for a while over in Europe. They had been doing this probably the last couple of years or more over in Europe. It's bad. I'm telling you. They rolled up the banks, okay? They rolled in some of the towns over there. They literally rolled up the bank. I mean, shut it down and went to mobile banking. And so it's something like once or twice a month, this truck comes through. I can't remember what city it is, but this truck comes through. And if you want money, you have to get it from the truck. And if you miss the truck, well, you just missed the money. Or you got to drive clear to another city and hope they have a freestanding bank that's actually a building where you can actually go in and make a withdrawal. Why are they doing that? Because they want it to be completely digital. Why are they doing that? Because if it's completely digital, they control it, not you. You cannot hold money that's just digital. You can't. Now listen to me, because I know some of you are going to say, I have it in a wallet. I have it in the digital wallet. Listen to me. You can plug in your digital wallet, but if they hit the button on the other end, you have nothing. Do you understand that? You have nothing. And they know it, and they're moving toward this whole AI thing, and that's a whole nother, Lord Jesus, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Oh Lord, look, wait a minute. Oh my gosh. Let me just read you some of the stuff that I had in my notes. Okay. I made some notes. AI. I don't know if you knew this, but AI is responsible for 40%. Let me see if I got this right. 40% of the US GDP growth and 80% of US stock growth. And it has been, and AI has been steadily replacing jobs. I mean, people are, listen to this. This is how diabolical this is. Now, I don't have anything wrong with tech. I don't mind tech, but I'm telling you, technology in the hands of the wrong people is very dangerous. Okay. Just like anything else, whether it's medicine, whether it's nuclear, whatever, in the hands of the wrong person or some demonized individual, it could be catastrophic. All right. These, I don't even know. Let me see if I can, let me see. Where is it? Let me just give you an example of what's happening here. I'm skipping around. Amazon has laid off 30,000 people. Amazon, 30,000 people. You know what they did with those 30,000 people? They furloughed them, and now they have AI doing their job. Mhm. UPS just laid off 48,000 workers. Intel is dropping here in the next few weeks 24,000 employees. And this is all part of restructuring because they know the dollar ain't worth a crap. They know it. They're trying to restructure and make everything automated as much as possible or be dealt with these robots and whatever all else because robots don't need sick care. Robots don't need Medicare. Robots don't need a vacation. They don't need any of that. They don't need paid vacations. They don't need sick leave. They don't have to get raises. They need nothing. You are expendable. Okay? You're expendable. At least that's what they think. These companies that I'm talking about, these are high rollers. Amazon, Walmart, they're laying off too. These people, these corporations are hurting a little bit. Not a whole lot, because let me tell you, during COVID, when nobody could shop anywhere except at these huge companies, they were rolling in the deep, honey. They were racking in money. It was disgusting. They put all these other small mom and pop, middle class businesses out of business, and they were racking in the dough. Okay. Amazon, Walmart, Kroger's, the grocery stores, Home Depot, all of these places are now getting rid of humans and replacing it with AI. Right? If your job becomes automated, they're going to replace you too. I'm just telling you. So saddle up and settle in. Okay. Um, how long can you sustain yourself without income coming in? Well, it depends on how many assets you have. It depends on how liquid your assets are. It depends on all kinds of stuff. Okay, but let me get back to what I'm saying. This is all part of collapsing a nation, right? When people start voting against their own freedom, like what we've seen just happen in New York, is absolutely astonishing that that people in America would vote for a person who promised them all this free stuff, free buses, free healthcare, free childcare, free food, free this, free that, free the other. And as soon as they win the mayoral race, they got their hand out asking the very people that they just told they're going to give them all this free stuff for financial support. I and and let me tell you something. The people in New York either voted for this or somebody cheated in an election. I'm just saying, okay? I can't even imagine somebody being that bewitched and deceived in their mind that they would vote against their own freedom and their own liberty. It's astonishing. It really is. So so here we are in the middle of this mess that has been this slow moving train for decades now, before I was even born. Um, oh my gosh, people are trying to make it right now. You saw, maybe you didn't, the I call it the snap madness. The snap madness. People have really gotten very brazen. When you go on the internet and you tell local law enforcement and anybody that'll listen what your intentions are, you're going into the store and you're going to take whatever you want because you're supposed to have it. Or you go on YouTube or Instagram or whatever all the other things are out there, and you tell the taxpayer that it is their job to take care of your children. I mean, you got to be a special kind of idiot to do so. I'm telling you, I'm flabbergasted. That's a word, y'all. I am flabbergasted over the things that I have seen. Anyway, this is all I have so much in my head right now, and my notes are crazy, and I'm just watching this stuff happen, and it's like, wow. um I think what's puzzling to me is that people don't see what they've done to themselves. They don't see how being so captured by hatred for one guy that you will lay on the altar of sacrifice your freedom, your children's freedom, their children's freedom, and you will go in the way of Marxism, who has no respect for no one. And everything is up at the top, and the little guys don't get hardly nothing. Starve to death, the society collapses. It does not work. It's never worked anywhere. Never, ever. Right? You can do a 2,000-year walk back and see all of these major organizations and societies that absolutely collapsed because people are taking the same steps that they're taking now, because the governments took the same steps that our government is taking right now. It's astounding. It really is. So, like I said, I'm not trying to scare you. And it seems to me like if you don't take enough interest in yourself to do what you need to do to protect your finances and your way of life for your family and your offspring, there's not a whole lot the government can do, even if they want to. Even if you have people in the government who really do want you to prosper and be in health, right? You have people fighting that. You you have Kennedy, who I'm no big fan of, but he's in there fighting for us to have clean food. And the companies that are putting out the poison is fighting the man tooth and nail. You know why? Because it's more about their bottom line than it is having a healthy society, right? If you have a healthy society, then the pharmaceutical companies ain't gonna make no money. I mean, who are they gonna give their drugs to? Everybody's healthy. Nobody needs medicine. But let that hit you. They don't want you well. They want you perpetually sick so that they can keep making money off of your sickness. They're going to use you as a sacrifice to the god of money. That's what they're doing. Anyway. So they are intentionally resetting the economy. This is what's going on. So now, for those of you that have followed me for some time, I've been telling you guys, I've been telling you for the longest. I don't even know what else to tell you. I've been telling you forevermore. You have got to look at home and deal with whatever it is you're dealing with at home. Your food, your health, your finances, your family, your children's education. I'm telling you, there's not a segment of society that this hydra has not penetrated. There is nowhere. They have penetrated the churches. They have penetrated. I saw, it wasn't a commercial. I think it was a meme. And it showed this guy, this thing in the pulpit. And, he had on a clerical robe and all this, but he also had horns on his head. And under the caption said, I have more of my people in the pulpit than you have of yours, right? Now, that's pretty brazen, but hey, that's an indictment against the church. But I'm not even going to, let me tell you, I'm not even going to. Anyhow, they are intentionally resetting the whole world. It's not just here. It's just this is the strongest nation. With all the problems that we have, we are stronger than any other nation on the planet right now. So if we're the big guy in the neighborhood, right? And you want the neighborhood, it's like a turf war. You want the neighborhood, you got to find a way to take over the bully, or who you think is the bully, or who you think has the most power, because you're the one that want to be sitting on the throne. Okay. Now, when I say you, you know what I mean. I ain't talking about you. Well, unless it's you. And if it's you, you need to repent. But anyway, how do you do that? Well, the way it's been done for years, for eons, people ingratiate themselves to your country, or to your president, or to your whoever they see as a powerful figure, right? They ingratiate themselves that, oh, how wonderful you are, blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as they get what they want, or get into a position of power, or very close to it, right next to you, they don't have time for you anymore. Now the whole mission is to overthrow you, to remove you, so that they can put in what they want to put in. Now, let me tell you something. Before I was elected to office, I had already served a term, actually 2 terms in two different organizations, and I was so disgusted, still am, with the stuff that I see people do who say they want what is best for the country, or for their state, or for their county, or whatever. Let me tell you, I done seen it all. I have seen so many liars, manipulators, false Christians, false brethren. Let me tell you, I have seen it all. I was so done. I was done. I was looking at the end of my term, and it was like being in the military and being a short timer. You just counting the days. I'm going to be finished here in a minute. I'm going to be finished after a while. And you counting the days. And then somebody called me and asked me if I would consider running again. I was like, right. And then it was like the Lord came and whispered in my ear. He gave me a choice. He always gives us a choice. And he said, if you abandon your place, you're going to leave a vacuum, and the devil's going to fill it. Well, that was a horrifying thought. And I was like, oh my gosh. So now what did I have? I had a choice between just giving up the ground and letting the devil have it, or at least staying in the place that God had designated for me to stand in, so that it was not infiltrated by this hydra. I chose to do that. And let me tell you something. It ain't been no cakewalk, folks. It ain't been easy. I've been lied on. I've had all kinds of fiery darts come at me from Christians, supposedly. I call them masqueraders, right? Because I can see right through them, right? You'll know them by their fruit. I always say that. You'll know a tree by its fruit. And there's a difference between a person who has some evil ways about them. Everybody does. That's why we need Jesus. And a person who is just flat evil. They need Jesus too. Okay. Anyway, I said that to say we have a place in this fight, right? Everybody's fight is not the same. and everybody's fight is not on the same front. So, for example, if you have children in school, you really need to be very diligent about what they are learning, right? Years ago, when my youngest was in what was she? I'm thinking it was might have been elementary school. I'm not sure, but I had put enough of Christian training in her as a young child that when she was given an assignment to read a book and she had started reading it in school, she had enough Christian influence in her life that she knew something was wrong with this book. She didn't really know what, but she knew something was wrong. And she came home, she brought the book to me and she said, Mom, she asked me to look at the book. All right, I looked at the book. On the face of it, it looked innocent. But then I started getting into the book. And the further I went into this little book, the worse it got. I'm telling you, it was like, what in the world? Why are they giving kids this stuff to read? It was full of witchcraft. Now, let me tell you something. If you think that ain't a real thing, I got news for you. Okay. It's a thing and it's a real thing. And I'm thinking, man, the schools have become breeding grounds for predators, right? So there's not a place in society that has not been infiltrated by people who have a completely different vision for our country and for you and for what your place is in this world and in this nation or in other nations, right? They have a different vision. If you don't learn from history, you'll do it again. And apparently, people haven't learned because here we go once again. There are statistics that are coming out where the statisticians are saying we are headed. People have been saying we're headed for a recession. Got news for you. You are late to the party. We are headed for a depression. Okay. When you take any society, I'm going to give you these numbers again. And you lay off 30,000 people from one of the largest organizations in the United States, 48,000 people from a delivery service called UPS, AI services and computer services, 24,000 people, 670,000 government workers furloughed. Now, I believe in small government, right? But that's kind of crazy. That's like, wow. You better do what you need to do to preserve your wealth. I'm telling you. When they change out the money, and I do believe they're going to change out the money because this whole thing is a controlled demolition. I said that before. I said it, I don't know how many videos back. This is a controlled demolition. At the same time, we have people who are sworn enemies of our nation who think they have a right to whatever you have, right? Legally or not, they want what you got. They just want it. They want it. And unfortunately, there are Americans who think these people should have it. Now, here's the interesting thing. They're not going to give them nothing. These Americans who think this is okay, they think it's okay for these people who don't have a right to anything here, have a right to your stuff. They don't want them to take their stuff. They want to take your stuff, all in the name of compassion and, all that good stuff. All right, look. When you have that kind of liquidation of jobs, these are not jobs that are coming back, okay? When you're talking about automation and AI, and people are literally training AI, not understanding that AI is going to take their job. After they train the robot taking over their job because the robot is more efficient. Like I said, doesn't need time off, doesn't need sick time, doesn't need child care, no benefits, ain't going to ask for a raise. None of that stuff that you do. Okay. You're expendable. If your job is automated and they get rid of whatever it is you do, what's your plan? What are you going to do? How are you going to sustain yourself if your job does not come back? Because let me tell you something, when you have people that are, in their 50s, in their 60s, and they got their eye on the prize. They're thinking, I'm gonna resign, not resign, but I'm gonna retire here. And all of a sudden, their knees are kicked out from under them. There's nothing. There's nothing. And the idea that they could train for another job at their age, well, first of all, who's going to hire them? Right? And second of all, if you've worked so long that you can retire from a job, I just doubt you go to another job at an entry level position making the money that you were making on the job you got furloughed from. You see what I mean? How are you going to sustain yourself when the bottom falls out? Because this whole thing of the government remaining shut down and people, leveraging your life for their own political gain, first of all, it's disgusting. And second of all, it's going to lead to more mental illness than you have ever seen. Because people who are feeling very strained and like they just can't make it, they don't know what else to do. Some people, it's just going to break them. I mean, it's just going to absolutely break them. It's going to shatter them. People are already feeling shattered. And I think most people that are really feeling the brunt of this are those that have done the right thing. They've gone to work every day. They've settled for the sad paycheck that they got where they were barely making it before, and now they're not making it at all. And some things have gone up 160% from the last time they bought it and all that, and they were barely making it then. So now we're going to have this whole big mental collapse in our society from people who cannot handle what is going on right now. You have hospitals closing down. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, you can't even make this stuff up. It's like, there's some good fiction writers, but I don't think they came up with this stuff. When you lose your job, let's say you had a job that was taking care of your health insurance. I've heard people talk about this and how they were having to pay a whole lot anyway before because of Obamacare. And now, your phone is probably blowing up from the Medicare people and all these people calling, trying to get you to, sign on with them and change your plan and all this kind of stuff, right? People that have lost their jobs have lost their health insurance. It came with the job. You understand? So this is not just about lost wages. This is about lost security on every level that you can financially think of. And a lot of times people have not had the extra to put aside. One of the things my mother told me when I was young, she said, for every dollar that you get, now this was way back in the day, so the chances of me getting a dollar, a whole dollar was anyway, I really had a dollar when I was a kid. So, I might have a quarter. And back in the day, those of you that are in my demographic, when it comes to age, if 25 cents could go a long way. 25 cents could get you 25 pieces of candy or 50 if it was two for a penny, right? You could get a lot with 25 cents, cavities and all. But anyway, for every 25 cents that I had, because I really had $1, I would take out like 5 cents and put it aside. And I had this little pink glass piggy bank. It was like iridescent pink. You could see through it. You could see into it. And it was about that big. And it was a piggy bank. It was shaped like a pig. Oh, we got to find one. Anyway, so I'd take my penny or my whatever and I'd put it in there. And then when it get full, well, I'd spend it. but but if I wanted to go to the movies or something like that, I would just go to my piggy bank and get it. Now, at the time that I was doing that, I didn't have any thoughts about, oh, I'm going to have children later on and I should be putting money aside and what do they call it? Creating generational wealth. And I didn't have none of that going on in my head. Okay. My thought was the matinee the next weekend. That's what my thought was. I said all that to say that nowadays, especially when you're dealing with a home that does not have two parents in it, where somebody can fill in the gaps where the other person, the other parent is out working. You don't have that kind of instruction going on in the average household. The richy rich people do. That's how they've created generational wealth. That's how you have stores like, I don't know if you guys might remember this, but FW Woolworth was a thing like a long time ago. I don't know if any of you on here remember FW Woolworths, but they had been around a long time. Hi, Sharon. Did I say hi to you? And they created that wealth and it kept moving, it kept moving. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the DuPonts. Okay, generational wealth. They don't care nothing about you. They're looking at their own legacy. Okay. So it's up to you to secure your own legacy. Nobody else can do that for you, right? So, in order to do that, you have to understand the time that you're living in right now. And like I said, I'm not an economist, but I'm not an idiot. I'm looking out there looking like, wow, how do you take down a nation? You mess up the money, you mess up the people by poisoning their food, their water. Then you create medications that won't make them well, but it'll make them feel marginally better so that they'll keep taking that medication so that they'll feel marginally better, right? So that they can keep money. The pharmaceutical companies can keep making. I'm telling you, it's a hot mess. And now, in the middle of this collapse, you have people who have lost their jobs. They can't buy medication. They can't buy life-saving medication. And because the government is shut down, they are not getting paid. Now we have, what's the last note I took? Here we go. I'm going to go back up to not the very top, but let me just. The Secretary of Transportation, his name is Sean Duffy. Sean Duffy put out a report. He announced, so I'm telling you this in case you're traveling right now, 40 airports across the United States are reducing flights by 10% due to staffing shortages, right? These people, air traffic controllers and pilots, and these people have been working without pay for a month and a half. And they're starting to walk. Say, I got to go find a job somewhere. If I got to go, a lot of them are moving to Australia because it's easier for them to get work there, doing what they do here. At least they'll get paid. That's how they're looking at it. We don't know how long this shutdown is going to last. What I can tell you is you have one party that has voted over 14 times to open the government. Open it. Let the people go back to work. And then you have the other party who feels like open borders are okay. Looting stores is okay. Burning down buildings is okay. Who have voted 14 times, keep it shut down. This is the only leverage we have. Yes, we know the people are suffering, but this is the only leverage that we have. So let me see if I understand this. You think so little and you have such low respect for your constituents that you would rather watch them starve and be without work than to do the right thing because you want your way, because you want the criminals to go unpunished, because you want to defund the police, and because you want to take away the citizens' right to protect themselves. And if the other side doesn't sign off and agree to that, well, you're just going to starve the country until somebody cries uncle. This is the level of evil we're dealing with. I wouldn't care which side was doing it. It's evil. It is diabolical to not have any conscience about hurting people, starving them and their babies, and cutting off WIC and all this kind of stuff because you want power. You are a psychopath. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, I guess I better look at y'all's. Let me look at y'all's comments. Okay, give me a second. Give me a second. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just on here losing my mind like I usually do. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna roll back up here. Yes. Amber said, I was at Walmart today and the cashier told me to be careful out in the parking lot. I've known this cashier for probably 8 years or more. Right. You know why? Because people have gone on the internet saying, I'm not going to go into the store and rob the store. I'm going to wait till you come out with a shopping cart full of food that's paid for, and I'm going to take it from you. Now, let me tell you, you can try that in the blue state because the police ain't coming to help you because number one, they either been defunded or number two, they don't care. They're not putting their life on the line for your groceries when the chief of police ain't even going to back them up if they have to shoot somebody because they came at them in such a way that was threatening. Right now, watch my video get banned because I just said that. But anyway. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to get through the comments here. Thank you, Margaret. It's good to see you too. Yeah, you guys are telling me about the commercials that I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I ain't doing that. Okay, they're doing whatever they're doing because they don't like what I'm saying. But anyhow, yeah, Sharon said, I remember those days of buying 50 cookies for a quarter. I know, right? Yeah, look at me now. But anyway, stop eating the cookies. What was I saying? Okay, yeah, the staffing shortage. This is so crazy because it's a hydra. It's like a double-edged sword. You have people and companies, major companies that employ massive amount of people that are laying people off by the thousands. And then here's the hydra. So you got these companies that are independent companies, private companies, and they're laying people off by the thousands. Then you have the government that's shut down, who's also furloughing people and laying them off by the thousands because AI is taking those positions. And not only is AI taking those positions, but also one of the things that happened was when the Department of whatever it was called, the whole Doge thing, I can't remember exactly what it was called. But anyhow, when they started doing their investigating, they found that there was so much pork, so much corruption, and a whole lot of shell companies where money was being laundered in and out of the country, you know, massive amounts of money going over to wherever for gender studies. Excuse me. Why can't they finance their own sexual mores? Okay, that's what I'd like to know, right? Why does the world use the United States like a piggy bank? That's what I'd like to know. Well, because it's been allowed to happen. And here's the thing. Exactly. That's exactly right. Amber makes a good point. She said, when they don't want to open up the government, that is what a king does. Exactly. So you have these lunatics that had this no king's day. Well, good. We have a president. Thank God we don't have a king. Okay. And yet they have seized control of the government and said, you won't get any food until you do what I want. That's what a sovereign does. That's what a king does. They have absolute authority over their nation. That's what a king does. That's what they do. So it's ironic that these people that are out here, that were out there protesting about no king, are acting like a king right now, doing the, I'm telling you, talking about gaslighting people. I'm telling you, if you ain't got your head screwed on straight, you might miss some of this stuff, but it's laughable. Well, it would be laughable if it was funny, but it ain't. Let me just give you a couple of other thoughts here, because like I said, I have a lot of notes, and it's just crazy what's going on now. Let me give you a couple of things that I would, let me just say this is what I would do, because I started out this video saying I am not a financial advisor. I'm a certified life coach. I am not a financial advisor, although I have my opinions. Okay. This is my opinion. Number one, the glasses are going back on. Okay, hold on. Number one, if I were you, or if I were me, let me say, I'm talking to me, y'all listening, okay? If I were me, I would sit down at the table. I would make a note to self to save every single receipt that I had for a whole month. Save every receipt. I don't care if you got it from the impulse rack in Walmart. Save the receipt, right? Save the receipt. When you get to the end of the month, sit down, look at the receipts, add them all up, and then look at your gross income. It doesn't matter whether your income is Social Security or your retirement or whatever your income is. Sit down, look at your income, look at what you spent, even credit card stuff. Look at what you spent and look at what you owe. And sit down and try to think of ways to minimize your debt. The very best thing you can do for yourself and your family right now is to get out of debt. You're going to need as much money as you can possibly have to help you weather this storm. Because if they shut, hello there, if they should, hi mom, if they shut down the banks for this reset, you could very well wake up to a zero balance, right? Or you can't take any money out. There won't be any cash transactions. And it all depends on whether they like you or not. This is what they're doing in China. If you say anything that the government has an issue with, and especially if it's the truth, they will make you a non-person. This is what they're doing in Britain. This is what they're doing in China. And this is what they want to do here. It's been a slow moving train, like I said, headed in this direction. But this is how you break a nation. This is how you take it down. You take away its wealth and you transfer it into the hands of those who want the power to do whatever they want to do over the masses, right? You take over the money, you take over the healthcare system, you take over the food, you take over. That's how you take over a country. It takes a long time to do it. But as long as the people are asleep or have been brainwashed into thinking that the powers that be actually have their best interests at heart, they can pull one over on you. You can wake up and find out that everything that you have in your bank has been converted over to complete digital. There is no cash. And everywhere you go, you're going to have to use a card, right? You will not be able to buy anything or sell anything without using that card. All right. So now, not only that, but for the last several months now, there was the whole issue of the real ID. I don't know what, I don't know if every state calls it that, but there is the whole thing of the real ID. And what they want to do and what they have done is they are taking your driver's license, your medical stuff, everything is in one ball of wax. And it's for the purpose of monitoring you and controlling your movement, everything you do. Everything you do, everything you purchase, every communication that you have, everything. They did trial runs on this in Europe, and now they're rolling it out. They did it a few years back in China, and it's working over there, and it ain't working for the benefit of the people. I mean, it's working, right? It's a thing. It's working. Oh my Lord. Okay, let me see here. Take action to secure your income. After you sit down and you look at what you had and what you spent, you need to start shaving back some stuff. Okay. There are things you don't need to do. Right now, the most important thing is not your nails, your head, or your hair, or your eyelashes, or your pedicure. It ain't the most important thing. It's just not. Okay. Now, you may have been used to living like that when you had a secure job, you had, good money and all this. But now, if you've been furloughed, you are going to, and listen, your job is not secure. I don't care where you're working. You can see that. It used to be that if you had a government job, then your job was secure. Yeah, no. Now you can see that. There ain't no security unless it's in Christ. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Okay. You may have thought your job was secure. It's not. And so you have to take very aggressive steps in monitoring your finances and making sure that you have assets that are tradable, easily liquidated, whatever that means to you. Now, some people, they could be like, well, I'm going to have a land bank. They go buy a bunch of land, they just sit on it until the value of the land goes up. And I can tell you, not all land goes up. It depends on where it is. It depends on what's around it and all that. If you buy land near a toxic waste dump, I guarantee you the value of that land ain't going up. Okay. So land does not always go up. So if you're thinking about doing something like that, buying land or whatever, think about where it is and think about what's the likelihood of this going up, the value of this going up in the next 5-10 years, right? You're going to have to think long term. You can't just live in the moment. You have to plan. You need to plan for your future, and you have to protect the assets that you have now and stop wasting money, right? Just walk on by the impulse rack when you get into Walmart or wherever it is you go. Just resist the urge to just grab junk food and stuff that is not sustainable. It will not give you the nutrition that you need to make it in hard times, right? And you need to shop more strategically. You need to shop and buy things that will last for the long term. Learn how to preserve your food, right? And for those of you that have been doing that and say, well, I've got, I know a lady, she told me she had four freezers, large freezers that were full to the brim, right? She couldn't get nothing else in them. Well, too bad for her. She lived in an area where during storm season there were frequent power outages. She lost everything because the power was out for like 2 weeks. She lost everything. I mean, everything, right? Everything. Here's the thing: if she had known, which she did not, because she told me she didn't, how to pressure can her food, it would have been shelf stable, right? I had a freezer go out on me right at the very beginning of COVID, right? Like in the first month or so of COVID. And I had been out of town. And when I came back, I opened up my freezer and it was cold, but everything on top was thawed out. It was cold. It was really cold, but everything on top was thawed out. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this? Why is everything thawed out? So I checked to make sure something wasn't obstructing the seal when you open it and close it. There was nothing there. I checked to make sure that the plug had not been accidentally pulled out of the wall. Nope, it was plugged in. The freezer went out. Excuse me. Sorry. My nose is itching. My front door is open. It's like, woo. Anyway, my freezer had gone out and I didn't know it. But I had taught myself how to pressure can and water bath food. So you know what I did? I started taking stuff, all the stuff that was on top that had thawed out. I took it and I prepared it and I pressure canned it and I put it on the shelf. The stuff that was under that, I took it out and put some in the refrigerator and I kept the freezer closed. I only went in there when I need to get something else out to thaw out, to pressure can it and put it on the shelf. Now, this is not a big freezer. I mean, and this was years ago. The freezer, I think, was like a 7.5 cubic foot, chest freezer. It wasn't that big. But it was full. It was full. And that was a lot. And you fill up a freezer and it's full, that's some money. So what I did was I pressure canned everything. It took me 4.5 days, starting at like 7 in the morning, preparing it, pressure canning it, letting it cool down, which took several hours, washing the jars, labeling the jars, and putting it on the shelf. Every time I did a batch, it was like an all day thing. And it took me 4 days to get to the bottom of that freezer. But I'll tell you something. I didn't lose one morsel of food, not a cranberry, nothing. I lost nothing, nothing. But let me tell you what I learned from that. And this is what I would suggest. If you have a freezer and you've been working on, filling up your freezer and all that, you need a backup source of power to power your freezer. If your electricity goes out, you have got to preserve your food. If you can't do that, if you don't know how to pressure can, you should learn how to do that and put it on the shelf, right? Put as much on the shelf as you can in the event that your freezer goes out. Now, if you don't want to do that, another way that you can preserve your stuff is to get some solar, right? With very large batteries so that you can plug in your freezer. You don't have to have it plugged in all the time, right? But you could plug it in and leave it plugged in and running for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then unplug it to save the battery on your solar. Then plug it back in. Leave it plugged in for 2 hours, 3 hours, unplug it. Because if it's a deep freeze, it's going to stay frozen for a long time. By the time I got to the bottom of my freezer and I was doing the very last of the food, that food had thawed out, but it was still very, very cold because the only time I opened the freezer was to take something out that I was going to prepare for preservation. So there's things that you're going to have to learn how to do. I was born in the city. I wasn't raised by parents that were raised on a farm or anything like that. I'm a city girl. I had to teach myself this stuff several years back. I started teaching myself because Just because God said, learn how to do this, learn how to do that. So I started learning how to do it. Wasn't nothing wrong that I could see, but here we are. And now I know how to do these things, right? Check your finances, get out of debt, think of alternate ways to preserve your food, right? What happens if it gets really, really great, especially in New York where they want Sharia law and they want everybody, anyway, that's a whole, I ain't even going to. But anyway, and monitor your guests and your visitors and all that and keep your mouth shut. Don't be talking about everything that you have and everything that you're doing. I know you might be proud of what you've accomplished, but this ain't the time to be doing that. If people want to rob you in the parking lot, desperate people do desperate things. So build relationships, but that doesn't mean you have to trust everybody. And that doesn't mean that they're entitled to know all of your business and all of your struggles and all of your assets and everything else that you're doing, right? Learn a skill, something that will help preserve your family in hard times, right? Anyway, I've been going on and going on and going on. I just want to thank you guys for coming on. I hope I gave you some tips or some reminders to do the things that are needful to preserve yourself while we're going through this crisis. Some people aren't going to make it through this. It's just going to be too much and they're going to take their own lives. And that's sad, but it happens. It happens in the best of times. And this is tragic for some people. It is absolutely tragic. Help people where you can, but don't lay yourself on the altar of sacrifice. Okay. Make sure that you're taking care of your business and your family and being a good steward of what God gave you. All right, you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Please push out this channel. Share it with as many people as you can. I'm trying to help as many people as I can to get through this, to weather this. And, just I care about you. I love you. And I want the best for you, especially walking through all this here. And so I'm going to try to stay up on as much things as I can. And like I said, this was not to scare you or alarm you, but I want you to be aware of what's going on so that you could be in the best possible position to take care of yourself and your family while we're going through this. Anyway, so thank you, everybody, for coming on. I really appreciate you being here. And please share the channel. Please give it a thumbs up if you have not. It helps them not shut my channel down. All right. And I love you. And I will see you the next time I come on. Start prepping, learn a new skill, watch your finances, and I'll see you later. Bye now.